Thanks, everybody. It's really nice to be here with you again this morning. So you are starting a new series on deep waters, encountering God by the river. Well, technically we are talking about an encounter by a river. It's the Jabbock River, but it's not exactly deep. So it's more of a shallow river. I mean, it's more of a kind of poor excuse for a puddle, really. I mean, it's a ford, it's a crossing place. So if you just kind of put to one side the whole deep rivers bit and just stick with maybe a slightly shallow river, that will be good. And you can see where it is there and kind of what it looks like. Personally, I find fords quite exciting. There's that kind of sense of jeopardy, isn't there? Will my car make it through? I mean, we have had the experience when we've been overly optimistic. It's not good for the car. You always have this kind of worry that, have I judged the depth right? How much rain has there been in the previous few weeks? And how many lurking rocks are there going to be? So there's always a sense of jeopardy with an encounter with a ford. So maybe that's kind of what we're going to be talking a little bit about this morning. But the key thing, I guess, for this is that it's a place of encounter. It's a place of encounter with God. So we are going to read the story together. I'm really glad that I've got an actual Bible, because normally I read from the screen, but I can't see that at all. So Genesis chapter 32 and verse 22, and we'll read this story together. That night Jacob got up and took his 2 wives, his 2 female servants, and his 11 sons, and crossed the ford of the Jabbock. After he had sent them across the stream, he sent over all his possessions. So Jacob was left alone, and a man wrestled with him till daybreak. When the man saw that he could not overpower him, he touched the socket of Jacob's hip, so that his hip was wrenched as he wrestled with the man. Then the man said, "Let me go, for it's daybreak." But Jacob replied, "I will not let you go until you bless me." The man asked him, "What is your name?" "Jacob," he answered. Then the man said, "Your name will no longer be Jacob, but Israel, because you have struggled with God and with humans and have overcome." Jacob said, "Please tell me your name." But he replied, "Why do you ask my name?" Then he blessed him there. So Jacob called the place Peniel, saying, "It is because I saw God face to face, and yet my life was spared." The sun rose above him as he passed Peniel, and he was limping because of his hip. So there we go. This is an encounter. But who's it an encounter with? Because that's quite an important question, I think, in this story. We're going to talk about that in a few moments' time. Over the last year and a half, I have been training to be a spiritual director. And one of the key things about that is the power of good questions. Good questions to unlock us, to unlock our feelings and our thinking and the deeper things that are going on in our lives, just to make us think maybe laterally about things and in a godly way about them. And there's a key question in this passage that we've just read together. And the question is this: what is your name? That's the key question of this passage. What is your name? And we're going to focus on that in a moment. But first of all, I wanted to ask you, well, who's asking this question? Who is asking this question? Because in the passage we read, it tells us a number of different things. First of all, it says, well, it was the man. The man asked the question. And that would be perfectly reasonable, wouldn't it, for Jacob to be wrestling with a man and the man to ask the question. But then why is this story so significant? Or maybe it's an angel of the Lord that is asking the question. And if we go to Hosea chapter 12, you don't need to look at that because it's only one verse, but verse 4, talking about this story, it starts in verse 3, "In the womb he grasped his brother's heel. As a man he struggled with God. He struggled with the angel and overcame him." So that's interesting, isn't it? So the Jewish people of the time, when they talked about the story, they said, oh, it was an angel that was wrestling with Jacob. Or is it God that is wrestling with Jacob? The technical term for that is the word theophany. It means the appearance of God himself. In some of the stories, like the story of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego in the fiery furnace, a figure appears with them. Do you remember that? I quite like it if you nod, because it reminds me that you're not asleep. A figure appears with them. Who is that? It's a kind of a similar question, isn't it? Is it another man? Is it an angel? Is it an appearance of God? Is it even an appearance of the pre-incarnate Christ? Who is appearing here? Who is wrestling with Jacob? Because I think that makes quite a significant difference to how we read the story. And is it okay if we're not absolutely certain? If we kind of go between those things and say, I'm just wondering about this. Maybe this is what's going on here. But in Hosea, they definitely recognize it as a wrestling with the angel of the Lord. So going back to this question, what is your name? It's a key cultural question around identity at the moment, isn't there? Who am I? What do I call myself? What do you call me? From whom or from where do I derive my sense of identity? It's kind of everywhere that we look right now. Arguably, who am I is the ultimate existential question that people have always been asking. Who am I? And there's all sorts of things we might recognize about identity. First of all, we can have mistaken identity. That's the top one on the left there. Mistaken identity. I want to tell you a story that will cast me in a bad light here. I was leading up at a conference some years ago now, and during the conference, one of the other leaders at the conference had heard that his son had just been diagnosed with leukemia. He was about 10 years old, this boy. So Nigel got up on the stage and he shared this with 300 odd leaders that were there so that we might be able to pray for him. I was one of the senior leaders of the conference. So during the next few days, I thought I really must check with Nigel how he is. I didn't really know him very well. So lots of people milling around. I go up to someone and I was like, just wanted to ask you, how's your son doing? He said, no, I'm not Nigel, I'm John. Just like, when you feel like you want to open up and swallow you. Okay. So I apologized, and that was all fine. Until the next day, when I did the exact same thing. He said, no, I'm still John. Now, I'm quite good with people normally and recognizing people, but I So I did this 3 times. 3 times. This is why I'm traumatized by it and happy to receive prayer afterwards. I just couldn't get those 2 people sorted out in my head. And you might have people like that as well. Whenever you see them, you think, oh no, it's not them, is it? It's that other person. And maybe people have done that, when you walk down the street and you think you see someone, you go, because it isn't them. That mistaken identity. We talk a lot, don't we, now about identity theft. We shred everything beyond an inch of its life. We have to put in multiple levels of verification because we're so concerned about identity theft that someone can get your data and use it and pretend to be you. And obviously, at all sorts of levels on the internet, that's even more significant and serious identity theft. Maybe we experience a loss of identity. My office in my church used to be up in the old organ loft. It had been improved. And people used to come up the stairs, and they frequently would say, it's just, especially people who'd retired. Because I say, there's no just anybody. There's never a just anybody. But maybe you had a job and that's not the job you have anymore, and it was your identity, but it doesn't really feel like your identity, and you're not quite sure who you are anymore and how you fit in. I remember leading Women's Weekend Away, and we did an activity right at the beginning of the weekend. This was supposed to be the easy bit of the weekend. They made a box and they had to write things about themselves around the box. You wouldn't have thought that was so difficult as it was. And I looked up, and one of the people there who I knew pretty well was sobbing. I was like, oh my goodness, this is supposed to be the easy bit of the weekend? And she said, well, I've always put daughter, but my mum's just died. And you lose who you are in that moment, or you can do. And obviously there's a huge amount of confusion around identity, but that can be that same. I used to be this and now I'm not. Perhaps you've always been the child, but now you're the adult carer for your parents. That's quite confusing. Or maybe you're kind of a chameleon identity, which is also a bit about confusion. Well, in this context, I am this. Maybe it's your work, or maybe it's your family, or maybe it's in the church, or maybe it's when you go into a place that you're not familiar with and you take on a certain kind of identity because you're not quite sure how you fit in that space. What is your name? Names can be so significant. In the past, your name or your surname probably said something about you and your trade. I wonder how many of you have come across the concept of nominative determinism. It's when your name compares, no, that's not the right word I want, but anyway, connects with what you do and who you are. Well, let me show you a few of these. You're going to have to be well behaved because I'm going to have to show them to you all at once, so just bear with me. So we have David Waterhouse, the houseboat owner, and Alan Toogood, the Samaritan's volunteer, and Andrew Drinkwater from the Water Research Centre, and Tom Kitchen, chef proprietor. And we have Dr. Pam Graves, an archaeologist at Durham University, one of my personal favourites, Lieutenant Les McBurney from the Sun Prairie Fire Department. And we have Christian Guy from the Centre for Social Justice, Dr. Gavin Breeds, gynecologist and obstetrician. And I don't know if you remember this when there was petrol shortages not so long ago, and they had somebody reporting from the BBC from the forecourt, Phil McCann. Brilliant. And there's lots more where those came from. Names in the Bible have all sorts of meanings, don't they? And I think over the years we've had whole Sunday schools full of the Old Testament and New Testament characters of the Bible. I love it when the next round of Bible names comes up and things that you never would have chosen now everybody's choosing. And there's name changes in the Bible, most of which you'll be familiar with. But here's the key thing. Their names are changed in relation to their relationship with God. They are not randomly changed. They are only changed in relation to their relationship with God, which is, of course, what this story is all about too. And here's a key truth that I think is really important just now, that our truest identity is found in our relationship with God. We have all sorts of other identities that we carry with us that maybe ebb and flow through our lives, but our truest identity is found in our relationship with God. So the angel says to Jacob, "What is your name? What is your name?" And Jacob's whole life had been a struggle, hadn't it? Right from birth, these twin boys, one coming out, the other grasping his heel. Where he fitted in the family was a struggle. He was more of a kind of homebody, whilst Esau was out hunting and fighting and whatever he loved to do. Jacob's whole life had been a struggle. That's really important when we talk about this particular struggle. And he, along with a little bit of help from his mum, has tried to put everything right for him, humanly speaking. They've recognized that Jacob is in some way disadvantaged in this family. It appears that way. And so his mum said, "We're not having that. You know, you're my favorite son. Esau might be your dad's favorite, but you're my favorite. And we're going to make sure that everything that you need in life is going to be coming to you." And he has learned from his earliest days to live out his identity, because one of the meanings for the name Jacob is cheat, is deceiver. And he has learned that and worked it out in his life from his earliest days. Esau is tricked out of his birthright for some stew because he's ravenous when he comes back from hunting. He doesn't care about his birthright in that moment. He just cares about hot dinner. And he tricks Esau into giving him the blessing that was due to Jacob in giving Isaac. That's the one. He tricks Isaac into giving the blessing that was due to Esau, to Jacob, by putting some animal skins onto his arms. And his dad couldn't really see. And so he tricks him as there. And he learns even to respond to his own moments of deception by hard work. I can fix this. I can do it. So when Laban has his daughters, Leah and Rachel, and Jacob wants to be married to Rachel, but Laban tricks him. I think it was easier to trick someone into marrying the wrong person in those days. Jacob doesn't get cross and angry. He just says, I can fix this. I can do this. I'm just going to work harder. I'm going to work another 7 years, and I'll get what I want. I wonder what your identity is. And I wonder how you reached it. And I wonder if there are some defining truths about who you are that actually you see played out in all sorts of different areas of your life. And maybe it's things that have been instilled in you from a child. Maybe it's patterns of behavior that you've adopted from your family. And maybe it's kind of just the way that life has worked out, but you've lent into particular characteristics. And when I ask you what's your name, all sorts of things run through your mind. I'm interviewing people on Monday who are thinking that they might want to be a minister. I'm going to try and put them off, of course, but so we need to interview them. One of the first questions that we ask people is, tell us a bit about yourself. What do you like? And then we quite often say, and what do other people say that you're like? What's your name? What do you like? What characterizes you? Because for Jacob, Genesis 32 is an absolutely key moment in his life. Because by this point, he is successful. He is married twice, with many sons. He's wealthy with flocks of sheep and goats. And at long last, he's on his way to meet and maybe finally be reconciled with his twin brother Esau, who he's treated so poorly in the past, and probably feels that he's been running away from his whole life. Now, there was no WhatsApp, so it's taken a while to send these messages, but he sent messages to Esau and says, can we meet? And Esau's sent a message back, which probably took many weeks, maybe months, and said, sure. So that's it. That's the communication over many years. I want to meet you. I'll meet you. But he has no idea. He has no idea. So here he is by the Jabbock River, waiting. And I wonder what words you would use to characterize Jacob's state at that point. Well, here's some of the ones that I've come up with. He was alone. It actually says in the story that he sent everybody else away. It's funny, a lot of Bible characters do that at various key moments in their life. They send everybody else away. Maybe that's an important thing. Somehow you can only have these encounters when everybody else has gone away. So he's alone. He's waiting. Now, if we had got stuck in traffic on the ring road, I would have messaged Glenn and said, we're stuck on traffic on the ring road, we are coming, but we'll be a bit late. They couldn't do that. So he was just waiting. And I don't know about you, but I find waiting really difficult. I hate waiting for anything, really. But waiting without knowing, waiting without even an ETA, just waiting, how hard is that? How hard is that when you have all sorts of things in your head going around? Is he going to kill me? Is he going to bring troops? What's going to happen to me? Is he even going to come? I know he said he was going to come. Is he going to come? He's just waiting. And he's really vulnerable because everybody else is gone. And he's afraid. And as you read through the passage, it's almost as if you can hear his heart beating faster with every thought of, oh my goodness, Esau is coming. And in that moment of aloneness and waiting and vulnerability and fear, he is attacked by a stranger. Now, that's absolutely not what you want in that moment. I woke up in the night, and Mike and I have both had colds recently. And so I woke up and I thought, Mike's not here. I can smell burning. This is not a good thing. I wonder if the house is on fire. It's probably Mike eating toast. That was all the processing, and then I went back to sleep, and it was Mike eating toast, so it was okay. But, in that moment, he is attacked by this stranger, and this stranger grabs him, and he wrestles with him. And this kind of wrestling is intimate. It's hand-to-hand, body-to-body combat. It's a struggle, and it goes on and on and on and on. It takes time all through the night. Now, I quite like that whole play fighting thing. It's quite fun. But through the whole night, when you think you're going to die with someone you can't see, that's less fun, right? And it's exhausting. And he is exhausted. And it's this significant encounter. He doesn't know who it is or what is going on. It's bewildering and confusing. And eventually this other man saw that he couldn't overpower Jacob. So he touches his hip, and so it's dislocated, and says, let me go. And the man or the angel or the Lord asks, what is your name? What is your name? And Jacob has to confess his true identity. Such an important moment. We can only be changed if we are able to own who we are in the first instance in the presence of God. And Jacob owns his own identity. And the wrestling and the struggle and the wounds and the scars are the thing that enable him to receive his true identity. I expect that you, like me, would really rather not have any struggles or scars. I imagine that you would prefer that everything was easy in life and just worked out and was kind of perfect, really. So I want to ask you a question. What causes you to limp? What causes you to limp? What are the things that are your struggles? Are the things where you've experienced the work of God, but not in a way that's made everything healed up, but still means that you bear those wounds, those scars? Have you had those moments of wrestling with God yourself, where there's something in your life and you wish that it would go away, you wish that it would change? There's a whole period of your life, maybe all of your life, where there's something that you just carry with you. Or it's a particular moment where you've prayed and you've wanted something to change, you've wanted something to happen, and it hasn't worked out as you've imagined, and it's felt like a real struggle with God. And you are close with him, but at the same time he feels distance. Does that make sense? Even in the praying, he doesn't necessarily feel close. Even when he's close, he doesn't feel close. But wrestling with God is a sign of intimacy, because you cannot wrestle with someone who is far away from you. You have to be in there, in the dark place, in the difficulty, in the struggle, but with God. And it's often difficult to see the face of God behind our struggles. It's not always obvious. But what if, like Jacob, What you once sought to escape, you choose to embrace. What if you, instead of thinking about some of the challenges and difficulties that you're facing right now and thinking, I just want them over there, don't want to think about them, don't want to look at them, don't want to deal with them, you actually turn around towards them and say, with God, I will embrace this. And with it, I'll learn about myself and I'll learn about God and I'll be shaped and formed to be more like Jesus. Because in that moment, when daybreak had been a very long time coming, and there are occasions when in our wrestling with God, daybreak is a very long time coming, maybe like Jacob, we might be able to say, I have seen the face of God. One day we'll get to see the face of God forever. Which is going to be amazing. But every so often there are glimpses of those moments when we are able to say, I have seen the face of God. Imagine that you have a new name. A name that comes out of your experience of struggling, but struggling in the grip of God himself. Imagine if you had a new name. And the question that seems to me key for this and for the wider questions really around this whole subject is not what is your identity, but where is it? Where is your identity? Because my identity right now is a Baptist minister, a member of the national team, a wife and a mum. Although the kids are adults now, so even that feels different than it used to. And I'm a sister. And actually, because both my mum and dad are still alive, I feel like an actual daughter. Like I know that will carry on, but you know what I'm saying. But my identity as a child of God will never change. I will always be there, both this side of death and beyond it. Nothing will ever change that. So where is your identity? Where do you source your name from, your identity from? Who God calls you, what he sees in you? What is your name? I'm just going to finish, but I want to just tell you a little story. Some of you will have read the book Hind's Feet on High Places. It's kind of a classic in the day. And it's a story. It's a little bit like, Pilgrim's Progress, that kind of an idea. And the girl in the story is called Much Afraid. And she grows up in the valley of humiliation. And one day the great shepherd comes to her and he says, follow me, I'm going to take you up on the high places. She says, I can't. No, I'm too scared. I'm not strong enough. I can't do that. I can't leave here. And little by little, and I am going to tell you the end of the story, little by little she trusts him. And she takes a step and then another step, and it's so hard, such a struggle to trust. It's so difficult to follow on the high places, so difficult to leave behind everything that was familiar to her, even though she didn't really like it that much. But eventually she does. She follows the great shepherd up onto the top of the high places. And in that moment he says, I'm going to give you a new name. You're no longer going to be much afraid. Instead, your name is going to be grace and glory. There's going to be a moment in heaven where we get a white stone with a new name, known to nobody else. And that name will be given to us. Maybe even now, you might be able to hear the whispers of God's voice that say to you, this is going to be your new name. This is going to be your new name. I'm going to invite Nick and the guys up, but let's just pray together, shall we? Father, thank you that you know us entirely and completely. Even when we imagine that there's things that are hidden from you, there is nothing that's hidden from you. Nowhere that we can be that you are not. Nowhere that we can run. And thank you that your grace and mercy reaches out to us as we are, not as we'd like to be. And Lord, thank you that you know all the struggles that are represented in this room. You know all of the wrestling that each one of us is doing with you, the whys, the unknowns, the uncertain, the questions which seem to have no answers, the problems that seem to have no solutions. So you know all of those.